Yachts for Sale and Charter YouTube channel opening a window into the world of yacht brokerage. And this week, answering your questions from a marine lawyer. So the reason that I do have some questions to ask a marine lawyer this week is because recently we produced a video covering the impact that the war in Ukraine is having on the yachting industry, and I suggested that certain aspects of that video would be better answered by a marine lawyer. Now, the lawyer that I approached is called James Jaffa. His company is Jaffa & Co. James has extensive experience in selling all kinds of yachts from the legal perspective. My most recent business was with him when I sold the Ferretti 960 Maisu 2, and he represented my client very successfully in that transaction, but he also deals with a lot bigger yachts, a few smaller ones. His legal team is growing all the time, and he's just seemed a very, very appropriate person to ask these questions of. So I'll get right into it. The first question we have was from Steve Smith. He says, I've heard a lot of Russian-owned super or mega yachts that are fleeing the EU and have turned off their AIS. Now, for those that don't know, the AIS is a system that allows you to identify the name of a yacht. So on a radar, all that you'll see is a little blob where a yacht is. On GPS, you might see the actual form of a yacht, but AIS will tell you what the name is of the yacht. Is this illegal to turn off AIS?
And David has very kindly asked me to comment because I am a super yacht lawyer based in London in the UK, and I specialise in the sale and purchase and general legal oversight of large super yachts and mega yachts. And I think the first thing to point out with this whole scenario at the outset is the fact that dealing with Russians as a nationality is not prohibited. And I think clearly there are some far-reaching consequences for sanctioned individuals, but also for non-sanctioned individuals. And there's a discrepancy in the broader public opinion between what you can do and what you can't. Now, it's a fast-paced situation, and things change from one day to the next. So I'd like to caveat this video by saying that, but as things stand, you've got sanctioned individuals who are on a list, and with those people you can't deal, you can't transact, you can't send them money, you can't facilitate any financial transaction whatsoever. And the same applies to individuals who are not sanctioned but are dealing through a sanctioned bank. And those people clearly you can't deal with, full stop. But beyond that, you've got other Russians who may be very successful and own assets either in Russia or outside Russia, who are not on a sanctions list and not dealing with a sanctioned bank. And at present, you can deal with those individuals. Now, certain, mainly corporate giants, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all the companies we read about in the press, are taking the decision not to deal with Russia more broadly. But it's very much a choice on their part. And in the super yacht world, we can still deal with Russia and Russians, albeit we might not choose to. And what we're being asked on a regular basis is, can I deal with Russians? And the answer is yes, because of the above. You do want to perform enhanced due diligence. You do need to be very, very clear on who you are dealing with, where the wealth originates, the trace of funds, the flow of monies, and those sorts of things. And clearly, if you make a mistake and you get this wrong, there are going to be far-reaching consequences. So the financial implications of dealing with a Russian yacht owner, for example, or a Russian-owned yacht that you're not allowed to under international sanctions law would be most likely a prison sentence and a fine which is so substantial that it will put most businesses out of business. So we need to be very careful. But with all of that in mind, the headline is, at the moment, you can still deal with a lot of Russians and Russian-owned yachts. We've been asked recently about large yachts turning off their AIS tracking systems and whether that in itself is illegal. And the straight answer is yes, in most cases it is illegal. There are instances where you're allowed to do it. For example, if the vessel and its crew are in imminent danger and switching off the tracking system would assist. For example, if there is a threat of piracy, in that case, a vessel is permitted to turn off the tracker. However, outside of those scenarios, those very limited scenarios governed by the International Maritime Organization, it's illegal to turn off the tracker. I think it's fair to say that the threat of seizure for some of these very large mega yachts is weighing more heavily on some owners' minds, and of course the penalty for switching off a tracking system when taken in the broader concept of sanctions against them and their whole lives being disrupted, all of their assets coming under fire. I think turning off a yacht tracking system is probably the least of their worries, if I'm honest, would be the human answer. But yes, the answer is it's illegal to turn it off unless very few scenarios apply.
Next question, Cliff Bradley. I hypothesised that there would be Russians that were able to hire someone they could sell their yacht to and have that person be, on paper, the owner to get around the sanctions. And the ones that wanted to buy yachts use even more shell companies, or again, a straw buyer. What are your thoughts on this? So what do you think, James? Is it possible that sanctioned Russians can hide behind shell companies or straw buyers?
And the simple answer there, which is very straightforward, is no, you can't. And those rules follow very well-established rules when we look at other, what we might call old-fashioned problems now, that we have much more substantial issues with this war in Ukraine. And those old principles are you can't hide behind a company. So the authorities around Europe and around the world will look at who beneficially owns a vessel. And previously, it was important to do your due diligence when transacting with a yacht owning company, because you needed to know who owns it, the incoming owner, the outgoing owner, source of funds, ensure that the funds being used to purchase the vessel were legitimate and lawfully earned. And the same principles apply now. They're just much more serious, because if you get it wrong, you're going to end up in jail, and you're going to end up with a fine that's so substantial you'll almost certainly be put out of business. And the simple answer there is no, a sanctioned individual cannot just rely on incorporating a company in a jurisdiction and hiding behind layers of corporate, what we call the corporate veil. It won't work.
Next question is from Ossi Valtanen. He says, thanks once again for a very interesting and informative video. One question that popped in my mind was regarding the crew and their potential legal liability, where a frozen asset, a yacht in this case, is moved from, let's say, EU or US waters to another location to prevent the execution of sanctions. What a great question. So basically, James, what are the legal liabilities for crew? I mean, should they even be moving a boat if the owner of the yacht has been sanctioned or is likely to get sanctioned?
The issue here really comes back to facilitating or participating in a financial transaction, because it's illegal to participate in any financial transaction where money changes hands, where the owner of the yacht is on a sanctions list, which makes it very difficult for crew, because if you are a regular guy, you're a deckhand or an officer, or frankly anybody, you can't receive payment for your salary because the flow of funds works in both directions and applies to everybody. So you can be on board a Russian-owned vessel, that has an owner who is sanctioned, and that in itself is not unlawful. However, you can't be paid. You can't get around these limitations, and that, for example, we saw a lot in the press about Dilbar, world's largest yacht by tonnage. The crew were all dismissed, but the reason I'm led to believe there was that they could be on board, but we can't pay you. There'll be no more money, and that leaves the crew in a very awkward position, because if you're a crew member that's been working very hard for a number of months and you're owed 1 month's salary, 2 months' salary, 3 months' salary in arrears, it's now unlawful for you to receive those monies. Now, whether some relief laws are applied later which allow crew, regular employees, to be paid, because we all have bills to pay, we all need to put food on the table, we all have families to take care of, there may be some relief that comes into force later, but right now you can't accept payment. So it's not so much a question of whether I can continue to work on board a vessel, but it's if I do, how will I be paid? And there's no point to me being on board.
Well, that's it. Thanks, James, so much for answering all of those questions. I'm going to put a link to your website in the description below, because I think it's always good to be aware of the work that you do and your availability for assisting people in the legal aspects of yacht sales. Just one thing I want to say before we conclude, which is completely off topic but quite important. Around the time that this video is published, I'll be planning on flying back to Monaco. I would love to have stayed here in the States for the Palm Beach Yacht Show, but I've had a wonderful opportunity in Monaco to be the moderator for a symposium at an event called Monaco Ocean Week. Now, this one-day symposium event will gather together yacht owners and yacht captains, people in the industry, to talk really about yachting with sense. And that yachting with sense is talking about how to really use yachts that explore further afield to collect data that can then be useful to scientists in their understanding of what's happening to the planet. It's great that yachts are going further afield. Particularly we'll be talking about Antarctica, where I think, among other yachts, La Dacia, that fantastic Damen Explorer yacht, is at the moment, but along with many, many others. What can they do while they're there of any meaning, of any significance? Well, there'll be a panel of experts discussing that topic, other topics as well. I'll have the honour of moderating that event, and it really is an honour to be at the Monaco Yacht Club doing that. The whole event will be live streamed, but you do have to register for it. It's free to register for. So I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. The event's on March the 24th. It's an all-day event, so you may not have time to watch the whole thing, but certainly to be able to watch parts of it, I'd invite you to do. So I look forward to seeing you there March the 24th at Monaco Yacht Club.